Well, will you look at that? Guess who was right yet again? Pat yourselves on the back, boys, because absolute chud supremacy is completely undeniable at this point. We are always right, we always win, and these companies need to get with the program. And today, boys, one of my sweetest victories yet. Oh, I'm sure you're gonna enjoy this one because IO Interactive, that's right, the company that made the critically acclaimed massive success 007 of First Woke, is pretty much just completely dead in the water. And I'm not gonna lie, boys, I absolutely love it. This is one of my favorite moments this year officially. I want to do a video on all the Xbox layoffs because they're so predictable, and we called this literally months ago. But IO Interactive is one of my favorites because you see, I am extremely petty. Oh, yes, you probably already know that, obviously. But the reason why I love this one so much is because the activists, the brainless low IQ people, they were so active trying to claim 007 First Life was such a massive success. It sold so well. You don't understand what you're talking about. And here we are. Dear gaming community, for a good while it has been all positive news for IO Interactive. We remain humbled and honored by the response to our latest outing with the young, unproven Bond, a bold new story and take on the most famous character in the game, which the world has embraced with love. Lamau! However, today we have to share some more of downbeat news. A relationship with an external partner on our own IP, Project Fantasy, has come to an end. This means we have to adapt to this new reality and its short-term consequences, including staffing decisions, which is what is happening as we are writing this update. Sad violin, anybody? And we are fully committed to supporting these affected through the challenging transitions. This is the only transition I do support with my full heart, by the way. The one where you get fired and no longer negatively impact the things I care about with your dumb, stupid, useless activism, by the way. I truly support you on this magical journey. And in any case, it's gone. It's gone. Project franchise is a game, an open world IP that no one really cares about and would be bad. This part doesn't really matter too much. You know what's my favorite part about this? The fact that these people are still living in delusions and cannot accept reality. Because this is one of the more popular things that got posted here and got a lot of attention. You shouldn't have had this problem if you had made a good Bond game that sold enough to pay the bills. Sucks to suck. If you get a second chance, make a game people want. And we got community notes, boys. Community notes filled with lies. And this is what we're going to be concentrating on. IO Interactive's 007 First Light sold 3 million copies in under 2 weeks, exceeding sales forecasts. Staffing decisions related to ending partnership on Project Fantasy, not a Bond game. Oh yeah, sure. The company just failed with the Bond game. And yes, failed, and I'm gonna explain why. Because all of this is lies. We have already talked about this, but these are easy to disprove things if you are if you know what to look into the finances of these things. Okay, and there's a bunch of links cited by the way, an IGN article. Yeah, like IGN articles are actually useful to make decisions on, and an IO Interactive post. And people are so confused what's happening. Okay, canceled game, fire staff. Failed game, fire staff. Successful game, fire staff. Indeed, interesting. Different company restructuring, firing staff. Great industry, guys. There's so many people are absolutely coping out of their minds and wondering, how could this happen? Bond, the 007 First Light was so successful. Don't worry, don't worry. We're gonna get into the why it wasn't. Clearly, not successful. But we're just gonna indulge a little bit and more in the, dead trolls of the week and dumb. Dear devs, stop making deals with Xbox. Stop publishing on their platform. Stop applying for their jobs. They don't respect you or value. Fuck them. Funny, funny. So let's look at the facts, shall we? Because the facts tell a different story. We have 007 First Light, which made a claim that in the first 24 hours, this game sold a whopping 1.5 million copies. Sold, not players, but sold, which is amazing. Now, granted, this number also had probably mixed in there copies sold for half price to retail stores and whatnot. So you can buy your downloadable disc code in at the, Walmart if you feel like it. But that's a different story. Anyway, 1.5 million copies sold 24 hours. Wow, that's impressive. Now let's look at the date when this tweet was done. May 28th, pretty much almost the beginning of May 29. Interesting. What do we have? When did this game launch? Oh, it launched on the 26th. So you're telling me IO Interactive waited pretty much almost 3 days at launch to announce that they had a 1.5 million copies sold? Isn't that a little bit suspicious and strange? Why would they wait so long to announce the 1.5 million copies sold? Well, anyway, let's not get too stuck on this, right? There's the next one. 2.7 million copies sold. Man, I bet, considering they sold 1.5 million copies in the first 25 hours, this was probably in the next day. This was in 2 days, okay? Right. Oh no, wait, this was in the first week? Huh. So it sold 1.5 million the first 24 hours. Decided to post about it 3 days later, and now it has sold 2.7 million copies in the first week. Isn't that a ginormous drop off? Yes, it is, in fact, by the way. Yes, it is. And when did they make this tweet? June 6th. Wait a minute. Didn't this game get launched on May 26th? Isn't June 6th like almost 2 weeks after? What? Why would they ever post the 2.5 million copies sold in the first week after 2 weeks? Isn't that a little bit strange? Yes, it is strange. Because 1.5 million is not the typical number people post. People love round numbers, okay? So, obviously, when they did their first post, they were waiting to see can they actually strike that 2 million mark, so they can sell 2 million copies sold in 2 days, which would be pretty nice. Sounds better than 1.5 in the first 24 hours with a delayed tweet of 3 days. And here they were trying to get that 3 million copies sold, but they couldn't get it in the time span that they wanted, and they did not find a way to actually, fudge the numbers so they can say 3 million copies sold in the first week. And again, this was at the end. This was at the end of week 2. Again, June 6th is here. This is 10 days later. This is almost 2 weeks after. So, and by the way, this is the last announcement. There's no announcement after this. Now, I'm sure they sold 3 million copies. I'm sure they have sold, by the way, 3.5 million copies. Even though the 007 First Light has absolutely dropped off of a cliff at this point. Now, granted, it did actually last a little bit longer than expected. It lasted a whole fucking week, and only then collapsed like a bridge. But it's collapsed nonetheless. We don't have an announcement of 4 million copies sold. And by the way, if you did not know, I did the math. Considering there are rumors that 007 is a minimum 200 million. By the way, I claimed it's 250 million straight up because licensing, all the things that they did for this game are extremely expensive. They have like they have like fucking 10 Hollywood celebrities doing this. That alone is a couple of million in you know, royalties and whatnot. They had the motion captures, they had everything. They had the car brand deals, they had the James Bond license deal itself. So yeah, this was, in my opinion, 250 million minimum. Okay? And, you know, again, the current belief is that this was 200 million to make. In any case, when you do the math, you find out that this game, 007 First Light, needed roughly 4 to 4.5 million copies sold to break even. That's right, break even. And for a very long time, we have lived in the world where games pretty much live and die on the first week of sales. Because after that, if it's not a good enough game, its sales just collapse and crater. So, will 007 sell 4 million copies? Yes. How fast? Maybe by the end of the year. Maybe if they're lucky. I don't know. They're probably going to sell, honestly, 4 million copies. And maybe come close to breaking even. Maybe. But with all the loans that they had to probably take, maybe Microsoft sponsored them fully, I'm not sure. But in either case, needless to say, while I'm assuming, by the way, they didn't lie, because they can't really lie about this one. These are some of the very few things that they can't lie about. It's the fact that it beat their sales expectations. Because this most likely did beat their sales expectations. Asterisk, the coma thing. Because let me explain what sales expectations means. Sales expectations is day 1 sales, week 1 sales, month 1 sales, year 1 sales, and blah, blah, blah. 1.5 million copies probably sold in the first 2 days was actually above what they expected. Because, again, everything is front-loaded now in the games industry when a new game comes out and gets sold. And after that, it's a sharp decline. That's how it is. And by the way, we can compare this literally to the sales numbers of something like Crimson Desert. Crimson Desert had 200k plus active players for literally 2 months fucking straight. And it only recently announced that it sold 5 million copies. Well, recently, I say that's like a week or 2 old. But the game that was so unanimously better received, better beloved, more hype, more talked about, more viral than this slop right here, has only sold 5 million copies. And we're supposed to believe that this is going to actually, that this is actually doing reasonably well? No, it's not. No, it's not. The front-loaded copies that they sold is it, but now their sales have completely plummeted to a disaster. That's the reality. This is why Xbox is ditching them, okay? Let's do the most simplest of, if you don't believe me, just in case. Let's do this extremely ridiculously simple logic test, okay? It's not gonna be hard, I promise. Okay, so you have Xbox, a company that's currently getting rid of a lot of companies because they're not making enough money. They need to stabilize. They're cutting off companies that don't make a lot of money, okay? They want things that do make them money. And now comes in IO Interactive with their 007 Volklight, right? Yes. And answer me this very simple question. Do you think Xbox is gonna cancel the partnership with them if it was actually making money and positive? Or do you think they just magically decided to end this because it wasn't good? The answer is simple, obviously. If this was making money for Xbox, if this was worth their time, they would have not canceled the partnership. That's how simple it goes. If this wasn't good enough, then they cancel, and they did. It's just simply that simple. Do you honestly are you gonna honestly sit here and try to tell me, oh no, these companies that want to make money just constantly get rid of things that make them money? No, that doesn't happen. And by the way, if anyone names that stupid what's it called game, the one with the rumble arm and guitar. I don't remember. Mr. Matty loves that garbage. What's it called? I forgot. That thing is different because that thing's intention was to get into the Japanese market, which it failed miserably. So the only reason that studio existed, it failed on that. So it got shut down. I don't remember what it's called, but again, every single thing of this can be easily explained to financial decisions. Very simple, actually. And that's it. That's it. Yes, I literally made a 15-minute video about me being petty. Welcome to the channel, baby! Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a nice day. I'm happy, and have a nice day. Bye-bye!